Hi crafters, Amy here, and today I have an idea to transform that ugly pattern paper that you have lying around. Now I have a set of quite a few sheets of this actually, which is really cool for, I don't know, maybe a teenager or a young person in my life, but as I have less and less of those, I'm left with this paper that I don't know what to do with. So I'm going to show you an idea to kind of jazz it up and change the look of it and create a fun card. Here's a photo of the finished card. It came together really easily, and I was able to use some somewhat neglected things in my crafty stash. So it was fun to get those out and play with them to create this fun card. And this would be great for a gender neutral or masculine card. So to start, I'm just going to load this pattern paper in my original size Misty. I do have these new sticky mats from scrapbook.com. This is the original size one, and I will put this pattern paper in it directly. So this will kind of hold it in place when I'm not using the foam insert in my Misty, because this is rubber cling foam, so it is a little bit thicker, so you need to take out your foam piece from your Misty. Now this is an embossing tool from the Rabbit Hole Designs. It's really cool. I like not getting all the powder on my hands from my little previous powder bag, but I'm basically just conditioning the paper so that the embossing powder will only stick where I want it to, where I'm laying this clear sticky embossing ink. This is Versamark ink. So I'm just applying this all over the stamp, and I will stamp this down a couple times directly onto this pattern paper. So the pattern paper is, I don't know, it's kind of ugly, it's kind of cool, it's a little grungy, but I wanted to step it up and kind of make it more my style. So just gonna give this another pass with the sticky embossing ink. It's really hard to see on screen, and even actually in person I was struggling a little bit, thinking, did I actually get this on there? I couldn't really tell, but basically I'm just going to pull this sheet off and then get a scratch piece of paper and put this Gilded by Brutus Monroe embossing powder all over the card, the card front rather. And this is kind of a thin piece of pattern paper, so I had to be a little bit careful hanging on to it and kind of tapping off the excess, but those little tweezers kind of help me do the job. So once I get this all covered and kind of tapped to get any excess off, I'm just going to put it right in the container. And congratulate me here because I didn't spill it all over the place like I often do. I'm such a train wreck with heat embossing, guys, I tell you. That's why I don't do it very often, but just got that little pile there, that little bit of extra. But basically I'm just going to use the tweezers again to hold this in place and heat up my heat gun here. I have a wow dual speed embossing gun here, so I have it on the highest setting, and I'm just gonna let you see this process because it's kind of magical. So basically you get it nice and hot, you bring it to the paper, and then it cooks that embossing powder and turns it to this beautiful shiny metallic gold. And I will zoom in here so you can see a little bit better. It's such a fun process to watch melt. So once I get all the powder heated up and completed on this process, sorry, my hands kind of messing with the focus on the camera, but basically you just cook it all, and then it'll be this nice shiny reflective metallic design from your stamp. So I'm just kind of running it over. You can also run it on the bottom as well to kind of cook it from underneath, but that finishes this part. So automatically it's transformed the look of this pattern paper. You still have the color and kind of some of the cool grungy texture underneath. Now at this point I'm shopping my sentiment book here to see what kind of card I want to turn it into. I think that Here For You would have worked really well, but I think I was already kind of leaning towards wanting to make it a birthday card. So this is my storage solution. I die cut a bunch of my sentiments in various different cardstocks and things and have them ready to go, but ultimately I wanted to use this brown color, and I wanted to use this Celebrate die from Catherine Pooler. So I am just using some brown cardstock that matches this little sentiment strip for the inside of the card, and I'll run this through my die cutting machine. And I wanted to jazz it up even further. So this is a fun way not only to use your colored cardstock, but you can add some more texture and dimension by running your die cut through an embossing folder. So this is one of my favorite all-to-new 3D embossing folders. It's called Angled Mosaic, and I'm just kind of lining it up in the folder, and I will run it through off screen through my die cutting machine, and look at that cool texture. So this won't work necessarily if you have like a really dainty, delicate die cut, but that Celebrate die cut was substantial enough that I think it worked okay. So just adding this sentiment strip, cheers to many more years. This is from Tailored Expressions, using some liquid glue, and that's a perfect match to the brown cardstock that I'm using on the front of the card. And I feel like it just goes really well with the color scheme of the gold with the colors underneath. So I'm just going to attach this to the front of my card here. And I do decide to use some liquid glue just because there's so much texture on not only the die cut, but also on the embossing, and I wanted to make sure that it was adhered really well. So sometimes if you're not sure if something is going to stick, like I think the micro dots might have worked in this case, but I didn't want to risk it, so I just used the liquid glue because, I don't know, the die cut wasn't too fiddly. It wasn't too hard to use the liquid glue, even though it's not usually my favorite. But I will kind of tap off the excess of this on a scratch piece of paper, so this will help me with the oozage dilemma. And I'll use those tweezers just to help me line it up, and I'll put that down directly on this card base. Oh, and I did attach it to an A2 size card base of Neenah Classic Crest Solar White 110 pound. Now this is one of my blingage boxes. Many of these are actually from Doodles Paper Playground. This one that I used today wasn't actually from them, but if you're not familiar, Doodles Paper Playground is like a really cool small woman-owned business, and she has tons of cool blingage like this. So this I actually probably got with an order from, I would guess, the Rabbit Hole Designs, because they often include little freebies like this in their orders. But it was just the perfect mix of colors with the browns and the kind of warm golds. So I'm just laying a smattering of those down, 2 on the bottom and 3 on the top. And there's these really cool square looking blingage. I don't know what they are. And then they're kind of like sequins, but without the hole in them. So I'm just laying down a smattering of those. I like to work in odd numbers. I find it more visually appealing. So when I'm done, you know, flinging them all around my desk, I will attach them with my jewel picker tool to the front of the card. And that's going to finish the card. So if you have a ton of pattern paper like I do and don't necessarily like the pattern on it, then maybe think about stamping over it or heat embossing over it, and or even stenciling over it. There's so many fun things you can do to kind of kick it up a notch and make it not so ugly if it's not your favorite sort of pattern. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing. I appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.